doing all the things, if you stop managing, if you stop holding everything together, that it'll all fall apart. I guarantee you that I felt this way before. And this last week, we had a great example, the most real life example I've ever had of managing versus mentoring in your entire homeschool parenting life, because it's all connected, right? So here's what I'm going to tell you today. I'm going to share with you what happened to us this week and why it's such a great example of what happens when you manage versus mentoring, or I should say mentoring versus manage, because that's what we were doing. And this is going to give you a lot of clarity into why you have the results that you have, why you have the situations you have in your homeschool, and what you can get out of it if you start mentoring versus managing. And this is going to be so transformational for you. This is going to blow your mind because it's something that we don't think about a lot. This is something that we feel, but we don't think about on a bigger level. And that's what I want to bring to you today, because I am all about raising kids who are independent, capable, and who know that they can learn anytime they want to learn something, that they are confident to go out in the world and do what's theirs to do, what is their passion, and what they're put on this earth to do. So I'm very excited to share this with you today, because this is a huge eye opener. Now, if you've been following me for a little bit, if you've read our emails and listened to this podcast, you know that my son and I and my husband, we've been preparing my son for his black belt pretest. And just happened a couple of weekends ago, and we just found out the results last week. I'm going to share with you a little bit about that situation, because it was a huge, huge deal. Now, he's been a martial artist since he was 5. He started training when he was 5. And we really started in the dojo that we're in about 8, almost 9 years ago now, 8.5 years ish. And it's a big deal here. Some people, they go to a black belt, test, and they get their black belt when they're like 10, 11 in different martial arts. Well, in our dojo, in our martial arts system, it is a gigantic deal. It is a real, true transformation. It is something that when you get your black belt here, you are prepared to defend yourself, to think differently about the world and yourself, which requires you to grow. In fact, you're not even eligible to get your black belt until you're 16 or older. And then you have to go through this very rigorous pretest. That's actually 2 days. It's a very, very rigorous pretest, doing lots of things. You have to be in very good shape, and you have to know your stuff, and you have to be able to also be creative with your skills and things like that. Now, we've been preparing for this for, well, basically since last year, but actually really consistently for the last 4 5 months ish, and really for the last 4 months particularly, I would say. And this is a huge deal. This requires someone to grow, especially a teenager. It requires them to grow. But honestly, anybody, they've had adults do it too. And this pretest is only a pretest. It is only giving you the eligibility to test in the real test. But honestly, once you pass this pretest, if you do pass it, you are pretty good to go. They're not going to give you the opportunity to even go up if you don't prepare yourself for this pretest well and you don't perform well. So, why is this such a huge deal for us? Because honestly, it's not about martial arts for us. This is about growing a person. This is about raising the person that he wants to be. And I'm going to share a little bit more about how we did that, because it's very, very applicable to everything that we do in our homeschool to raise that kind of a person. You guys know I start off with that end goal and then we work backwards. Who are they as an adult? What do we want to raise as an adult? And then we work backwards. So this is very, very important. So, this pretest we've been preparing for a long time. And that means physical training, studying history and customs courtesies, all the things in the dojo and in our lineage, back in the founders and all the things, and about the art itself. And also his skills, of course, right? But there is a big mental shift that happens in this pretest that we have to make sure he's prepared for. There's a big mental breakdown that they do on purpose, and then they see what you can do from there. And that requires a lot of grit. It requires a lot of being able to perform and having confidence in yourself that when you can't even like fully think and your muscles are all tired. That's what real life is about. If there were a situation in which he were in trouble or something, he had to defend himself, he has to be able to do that. So that's why I do love this pretest. We're not just putting him through this just because it's black belt. We're putting him through it because of what it requires of him to do in his life. So he did the pretest. Some of it went well, some of it didn't go well. If you've read from our newsletters, I went into a little more detail on that, but the results didn't come out until the following week. And when we sat down in Great Grandmaster's office, I pretty much knew what was coming. And we talked a lot. And my son Kenyon was there, and we brought him in, and he said, "Okay, what do you think? What's happening?" And we went through all the things, and he didn't pass. Now, this is huge. Has been a source of great stress for us for months and months and months and months because we want him to pass. It's been a stress for me. Oh my gosh, having your kid go up for something like that is a huge stress for me. Lots of anxiety, but I had to choose how I was going to show up for him. And it was really, really hard. It was really hard. But I have to say, as we were sitting there in the office and he didn't pass, he just nodded his head. He nodded his head and he said, "Yeah, I expected that. And I know what to do next time." And he actually outlined everything that he knew he needed to do next time. And Greg Master was like, "Yeah, okay, well, you know what you need to do. You're right on. It's exactly everything that we were talking about that you needed to do." So he knows what to do. And you know what? For me as a mom, oh my gosh, he didn't pass. And that's disappointing on one level because we put so much energy into this, but that's the short-term view. The long-term view is, wow, what a win. What a win. This kid is sitting here. He's not even really emotional about it. He's really just like, yeah, okay, I expected that. That doesn't surprise me at all. I know what to do next time. Got it. And in the car, we talked about it a lot. And we talked about the result and how he felt and how it was going on. He's like, I could cry about it, but what's good's that going to do? He's like, it was all up to me. I know what I didn't do to prepare, and I know what I need to do next time. That's crazy. That's crazy for a 17-year-old to say, in that the years before when he's gone up for a similar type test hasn't been that way, right? So we're thinking that it's a huge win. We know it's a huge win because he owns it. He owns every single part of it. Wow. Pretty amazing, pretty amazing. And I also have to say that because this win was because how I chose to show up in his life as a mentor, not a manager. How I chose to show up not only for homeschool, but for this specific situation, which is very high stakes. I chose to show up a little differently. That's really huge. And it was hard. I'm not going to say it was easy. Man, it was hard. I'm a coach by nature. I was an athlete for over 20 years. Oh my gosh, I was a coach as well. I wanted so badly to manage because I could help him better if I managed with this test. See, a manager is somebody that controls the process. A manager, and see if this sounds like you in your homeschool. I just want you to think about this. I'm not trying to like blame anybody for anything. This is totally normal. I'm going to talk about that. But a manager controls the process, controls how things are done. A manager sets the plan, and a manager takes and tracks the progress. But guess what a manager also does? A manager owns the outcome because the manager was in charge. Now, let's contrast that a little bit with a mentor. A mentor role would actually clarify the vision. See the difference from controlling the process to clarifying the vision? Reflects reality. That's a hard one, man. Reflecting reality, basically holding up a mirror in what reality is in not a harsh way, but just in a guiding way. And guiding that thinking about that reality and the vision and how they match. And guess what? When you mentor, your kids get to own the outcome. The person you're mentoring gets to own that outcome. That's what my son did. He owned the outcome. And the manager, if you think about it this way, the manager prepares the path. The mentor prepares the person. I'm going to say that again. The manager prepares the path. The mentor prepares the person. I'm not saying there isn't some managerial things that have to be done. Sometimes there are. But you have to know when to do that and when not to. And that's hard. It's not easy. It's a skill, though, that you can learn. I'm going to talk about these in 4 different ways, okay? So there's 4 different principles when we mentor. One is that we focus on identity first. So when you focus on identity first, what happens is you're asking your kids and you're asking yourself, who am I raising? Who do you want to become? What is the kind of person? I swear to you, that is the single most repeated question that I use with my son almost daily. Who are you trying to become? Who do you want to be? Some form of that question has been embedded in our homeschool life, in our family life forever. Who do you want to become? What kind of person you want to be? That's so huge. That's a mentor question. We didn't start with workouts. I didn't start saying, okay, Monday we're going to do this. Tuesday we're going to do that. Does that kind of sound familiar? Monday we're going to do page 1, page 2, page 3. Monday we're going to work out, we're going to do legs, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I didn't start with the workouts. I started with who he wants to become. Now, I did guide him in some of the workouts, and I did guide him in how he planned them, but I didn't control it. There's a big difference there. I started with who he wanted to become, his why, his big reason. We started with, what does a black belt look like? What does a black belt do? Who is a black belt in your eyes? Not just in the dojo, but in life. We identified that. We went through all the things. And that inspires effort because he wants to become that. He really, really does. The second thing is having ownership over optimization. Oh my gosh, this is so hard. Okay, so as a mama, I'm like, I need to, this is easier if I just do it. I just do it for them. It's easier if I just create this schedule. It's easier on me if I just plan all the things. I'm not saying there's not a place for some of that, but we have to know when to do it and when not to. It's hard. It is hard. And it feels so good when we're managing and we're checking the boxes and we're doing the things. We're like, woo! Who are we raising? Who owns it? Mm, it's painful. It's painful. It's painful for me even now to think about it. Who owns it, right? I could have planned everything for him and it might have made a difference. In fact, I know it would have made some difference anyway. It might even have pushed him over the edge to passing. But that didn't build him. It didn't build who I'm trying to raise. So there was some structure, but it's not dictated every single little thing, right? The third thing is reality plus responsibility. Okay. So reality plus responsibility without rescuing. You ever feel like you just want to rescue your kids? I know we do. All of us parents, we want to rescue our kids. I do all the time. I have been guilty of that so many times, but I have to constantly think about who am I raising and what am I doing if I rescue? It's really hard. I honestly, this is something I early on struggled with. Now I can choose and I understand the difference. But this is about honest conversations, reality plus responsibility. This is that mirror I was talking about, holding up that mirror, reality in conversations, telling the truth early so that the outcome isn't confusing. We had almost daily conversations about what he was doing and how that was going to affect the outcome. Some of times it was positive, sometimes it was negative, but we really did have a, ooh, let's take a look. Let's just take an assessment. And then I would just give the assessment of what it was and I would ask questions about that. So it really allowed him to see his blind spots, right? Now, I'm not going to say that this is something that you would do with somebody that you don't have a good relationship with. If one of your kids and you guys don't have a mentoring relationship, this is not possible. If they have a low love of learning, it's not possible. You have to raise that love of learning. You have to create that relationship in order to hold up the reality, in order to hold up that mirror. Just think about if you've ever had a boss or a teacher that said something to you, or even maybe one of your parents that said something to you that you didn't have a mentorship relationship with, and you were offended. You were not open to hearing what they had to say. That's what happens. I see it all the time with parents when they try to hold up the mirror and they don't have that relationship. We've built this relationship for years and years and years of me showing up in a much different way, me showing up as a mentor and really developing intentionally this culture, this relationship that we have. Okay. So reality plus responsibility. It gives him responsibility. It allows him to take ownership with that reality, right? And then he's not going to be surprised. He didn't go in there and go, "What? I can't believe I didn't pass. I did all the things." I used to get that from my students all the time in school. "What? I failed your class? I did all the things." And I'm like, "Really? All the things? You did every single assignment with thought and effort." Yes. No, they didn't. I think if we looked at your papers, if we looked at your things, your projects, we would see a much different story. And they were just, nope, not my fault, right? But my son took ownership of it because he was like, he knew like what he had to do, what the results were, what he was doing, what he wasn't doing. There you go. There you go, right? And then the fourth thing is long term wins over short term results. And I've talked about this earlier. It's really thinking about the person that we're trying to raise, not talking about who the short-term win. That's very, very important, okay? The confidence that I have that he's going to do it next year, which I know. I know without a shadow of a doubt. My husband and I were having a conversation about that just right after, we found out. And he was like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "I am 100% sure that he knows what he needs to do." So when he just needs to do it. And I think that he's more prepared to do that than ever. And the fact that he's going to have another year of maturing definitely helps. And I'm not going away. I get to mentor him through that process again. And man, it's gotten easier every year to mentor him through that process. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. So we have ownership that comes from clarity and direction. It doesn't come from somebody who managed every aspect of his preparation. This is not just about asking questions. I said a lot of things where I'm talking about asking questions. It's really knowing about when to step in and when to hold back. There's a lot more holding back than there is stepping in, but sometimes there needs to be a little bit. But you have to know when to do that. And trust me, this might seem like a lot. I don't know how to do this. I get it. But guess what? It's a skill. It's a skill. You can learn it. And this is what I've been teaching for a very long time. I love, love, love this because it's the relationship that you get. It's the long term vision. It's raising a real whole person that's independent and capable. The beauty of that is so awesome. This shows up in your homeschool every day, every day, every day. Because your homeschool is your life. It's part of your life as a family. It's part of parenting. It's just part of how our household works, right? So when we think about not separating, last week I talked about not last week, but the week before in the podcast, I talked about not separating school from life, right? We have it together. And when we do that, we're much more capable of mentoring. If we have it separate, it's harder. In fact, it might be impossible at that point. We want it to be we're raising a whole person, right? If I had managed him, he might have passed. He would have come very close, if not all the way. But he wouldn't have grown. He didn't pass, and I've never been more confident that he will. I'm not raising a kid who needs me to run every aspect of his life. I'm raising a young man who knows how to lead his own life. And that's what we're working on in our house. It's taken a lot of shift because man, I so wanted to show up for him in a manager point of view. I could have just managed the heck out of it and it would have gone much better. It was so tempting every single day, every single time. And it was hard not to. And it's still hard because he didn't pass. But it's worth it because of the outcome that we got. We're raising a person. It's the difference between running your child's learning and who they're becoming and raising someone who can lead their own. Does that make sense? Oh, this is so powerful. I hope that you listen to this and watch this over and over and over again because I know that this is a skill that you can master. It's hard. It's honestly taken me years to learn because I needed mentorship myself. A good mentor is mentored. A good mentor is mentored. A person getting mentoring has more capability to mentor others. It just makes common sense, right? I know you can do this, and what the results you will get out of it, you're going to blow your own mind. The kids you're going to raise, the things that they will say to you, it's unbelievable. I'm so excited for your journey. And if you resonated with this at all, please share this with somebody else who could use it. Please share this with even just another parent, even if they're public schooling, they can use this. And please like, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple Podcast if you would. It really helps us get this information, this vital information out to more and more families. I believe in you. I know you can do it. And I'm here for you always, always. Talk to you again next week. Bye bye.